Hey guys, Alf here. Today we're going to talk about a model called Munroe Bergdorf, if that's how you pronounce her name. She's a transgender model that was working for L'Oreal for like about a month. She was actually heading a campaign for them, and it was the first time L'Oreal had hired a transgender model. But in light of her becoming this, heading this campaign, um, the Daily Mail uncovered that she had posted on a Facebook, in a Facebook post, right after the Charlottesville thing, that she was tired of talking about racial violence of white people, and then said yes, all white people. So she's basically saying all white people are racially violent. Um, she again posted afterwards. I'll quote this one. Once white people begin to admit that their race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth, then we can talk. Which is yeah, that's absolutely ludicrous, right? The most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, she was fired basically by L'Oreal after a month because I don't even think. Yeah, it was about a month. Mostly because they are all about tolerance and they don't think that being racist towards white people is an excuse. You could that you can't be racist towards white people like these people tend to say. So they fired her, and now she got all pissed and she was firing back, saying, "Oh, they fired. This is discrimination and this and that." It's not really. She's being discriminative, and L'Oreal fired her over that. So that's what she gets. But she has some videos here. We're gonna watch them, and I'm gonna break them down a bit and see what we can get out of this.
What kind of country is modern Britain? No doubt it's a country that likes to think of itself as inclusive, but that depends where you're standing. To me, as a transgender mixed race person, we live in a deeply racist society.
To start with this one, her being transgender has nothing to do with racism. Like, it's irrelevant here. Being transgender doesn't give you any special insight towards racism in a specific country. So irrelevant. She didn't even need to mention that. She is mixed race, but I would like to say you hear this a lot that oh, because you're white, you don't understand and this and that. That's bullshit. Anybody of any race can look up. I'm mixed race and I look into society. She was posting about the Charlottesville thing when she said about white people, which is in the U.S., which is where I am, and I don't see it that way. I don't see white people as being the most violent, oppressive force. So her being mixed race doesn't give her any special insight. You can be of any race. You could be even be white, and all it does is look into society, analyze the country you live in, and how society deals within that society and within that country, and you'll understand. We're human beings. We learn. We don't need to be a specific type of race or human being to know certain things. We can all know the same things. We don't need to experience those things to understand those things. We can learn those experiences. Just like I don't need to have been electrocuted to understand that electrocution fucking sucks and hurts. You know what I'm saying? It can fuck you up. I don't need to actually experience it to know that. I've learned that. So yeah, I don't believe England is a deep sea. Oh man, that's a tongue twister. I don't believe England has deep rooted racism. England's actually done very well with diversity. They let in immigrants. They have all types of social benefits to people, and so if you come in as an immigrant, you can get social benefits as well. If you become an English citizen, you get even more benefits. This person, Munroe Bergdorf, is a mixed race person who has been benefiting from England all this time, just as much as white people have been benefiting from England. She went to school. I'm sure she gets health care paid for if she gets sick or injured. She's done well for herself. She's a model. She's a DJ. She's done well for herself in England. So it's kind of strange when someone does so well for themselves and then says, "Oh, there's all this racism." Well, why didn't it affect you? Why are you still at the top? Maybe she'll say, "Oh, it's because I got fired from this thing. That's racist." No, you didn't. You got fired because you were being racist, and they didn't agree with it. So, too bad. You know what I'm saying? Don't be racist, or at least keep your racism to yourself if you want to keep your job.
The government's race audit for England identified discrimination against people of colour in many of our institutions, ranging from the police to the justice system to schools. Does this surprise you? It's old news to me and almost a bad joke to identify it now. It's something that we've known for years, but the political will has not been there to deal with it, and I'm not sure it is now.
So I looked into this race audit she's talking about, and it's just numbers. This is just demographics. Like they're taking demographics and showing it as this must prove racism, but they're just numbers. Numbers don't prove racism. Numbers don't show a conclusion. You don't know the reasons for these. So in the end, it's showing maybe like, these specific races aren't doing as well here in these areas. They don't get these kind of jobs. They don't move up as quick as other people. There could be multiple reasons for this. It doesn't have to be systemic racism. It doesn't have to be because the country's racist. It could just be that these demographics are doing things differently. Just like you see with in the U.S. You know what I'm saying? There's, you want to look at stats of how many women are garbage men? I'm sure you're going to find very little. Are you going to say sanitation departments are sexist, or are you going to say that women tend to not go for those jobs? You know what I'm saying? Conclusions don't come up with your own conclusions to these statistics. You have to find these conclusions. Perfect example of this was the wage gap, where all the feminists came out and was saying, oh, sexism. Nowhere in that study did it give a conclusion as to why women were making less than men. Of course, that study was wrong, and even the people who made the study came out and said, don't use this study, it's wrong, these statistics are wrong. But I'm just saying, if they were valid statistics, you still couldn't claim sexism because you don't know the conclusion to why these numbers are like this. You're just basically putting your own conclusion, your own bias into it.
Why should we expect anything else from a country that's built its success on the enslavement of non-white people? It's that continuous cycle of racism that explains where we are now. Why does the UK acknowledge the sacrifice of people killed in wars, but not the spilled blood of black people?
This always makes me laugh when people do this. Like, well, how could we expect anything different from a country that benefited from slavery? Like, yeah, that was the 1700s. Get over it. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny how people like this will mention how England benefited from slavery, but they never mention that England was a powerhouse in ending slavery in in the world, basically. Like, not only did England end slavery for themselves in the 1700s, they ended it for all their colonies. They even ended it for the waters around them. Any boat seeing transferring slaves in British waters were in big trouble. You know, they weren't allowed to do that. It was against the law. So, you know, England would attack them or seize them and set the slaves free. England also was detrimental in like convincing countries around Europe and other countries around the world in abolishing slavery in their countries. So, of course, England never gets the credit. They're one of the biggest proponents for ending slavery. We're one of the biggest proponents for ending slavery. They even helped the U.S. end slavery too, and that never gets any credit. You know, England never gets any credit for being the ones who ended slavery almost globally. Obviously, they didn't succeed in ending it globally, even though they wanted to, because, you know, we still have slavery today in parts of Africa and shit. But yeah, I never give England credit for that. So obviously, 300 years ago, they benefited from slavery, but 300 years ago, they abolished slavery and have been working towards getting rid of slavery and, you know, treating people equally. But for some reason, 300 years later, you don't see that. Been crazy.
If the UK took our oppression seriously, then people like me who call out racism would be listened to rather than ridiculed or threatened with death. If white people want to see an improvement for people of colour, they need to understand that racism is not learned, it's inherited, and either consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. The uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth.
Funny enough, right? At the beginning, she talks about if you call out oppression, people will ridicule you and stuff. But then she says the most ridiculous thing. It says that racism isn't learned, it's inherited. That's so ridiculous. This is why she is ridiculed, because she says ridiculous things. She's not calling out oppression. She's saying ridiculous things and saying that that's oppression when it's not oppression. These things aren't true. Racism isn't inherited, it's learned. It's not. White people aren't inherently racist. They, you know, people, and all people consider to be racist. I mean, look at Munroe Bergdorf. She's racist. She says racist things. You know, now maybe she isn't intentionally racist. She doesn't realize she's being racist because she thinks these things are true by saying that white people are the most violent, oppressive force, which is bullshit. Obviously, complete bullshit. There's way more violent, oppressive forces in the world than even human beings as a whole. So, in the end, yeah, she's ridiculous. She says ridiculous things, and this is why she got fired. This is why people ridicule her. Probably why people threaten her, though people shouldn't threaten each other. I totally don't agree with that, and I would never threaten anybody in that way, at least. Not for saying ridiculous shit. I'd just call them out on the ridiculous shit. But, yeah, this is why these happen. She doesn't realize it because she's so engrossed in this, and in her mind, this is so true that she can't see how ridiculous she's being.
I think the worst thing that someone said to me was, I want to cut your head off and fuck your skull, or you deserve to be lynched. It's really weird that people can think that that is less threatening than calling out institutionalized racism.
It might be more threatening if you think about it. Lynching that was probably an American who said that, and you live in the UK. Like, was lynching even a practice in the UK towards black people? I don't think so. I could have been. I don't know. I'm not British, but maybe it was. But what do you think? This guy's gonna fly from the US to the UK with a mob to lynch you, and nobody in the UK is gonna do anything about it? None. Your officials aren't gonna do anything. Your police aren't gonna do anything about it. Come on, that's very small threat. It's not much of a threat at all. Yeah, people saying they're gonna chop your head off. Yeah, that's pretty threatening. But you're talking about a threat towards basically every citizen of England. You are calling out false systemic racism, which if you convince your government of, they can change laws and restrict rights from people, and you don't even realize it because you believe there is a systemic racism. So since you have this cognitive dissonance in your mind that there's no way to convince you that there is not systemic racism, then you'll never be satisfied with what the government does. You'll be satisfied with little things, but there'll always be something more and more you'll want, because that's how it works. So, you know what I'm saying? When you see something like that, and when you see something that's not there, you'll always see it there. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's not. So regardless of what the government does, you're still going to fight and fight for more and more and more changes, and eventually British citizens will be losing rights, and that is dangerous. That is very threatening.
Racism isn't something that white people need to be getting uppity about because it does not affect them. Racism really isn't on both sides, it's on one side and it punches down. When I wrote the Facebook post that became worldwide news, oddly, I was really pissed off, writing it in response to the Charlottesville attack, which was absolutely insane. Everybody was angry at that point, but I was really pissed off. It got taken out of context, sold to the Daily Mail as just a rant that I was slagging off white people. I don't think that all white people are literally racist. Society is built on different foundations, and one foundation that society is built on is white supremacy.
So much to say here. Racism is something white people should be getting uppity about. Anybody who is having racism perpetrated against them should be uppity about it and should be able to complain about it and say what they want to say. And they should do it. I mean, I think that's their obligation to, actually. But she says that racism is about punching down. Racism only goes one way. Bullshit. People say this a lot. Learn the definition of racism. Why are we changing words? It's in the dictionary. Look it up. It's not that hard. Racism can go anywhere. It's not prejudice plus power. It's just prejudice based on racial bias. Look it up. Stop acting like you're not racist, right? You're using this as an excuse to be racist. Well, I can be as racist as I want because I'm a minority, so racism don't count towards me. You can't call me racist. Yes, I can. I'll call you racist, and you are being racist. Secondly, she says her her post on Facebook was taken out of context. No, it wasn't. She said white people, and not only that, but she's repeated this again. I don't know why she's saying it's taken out of context. Is trying to double talk this and confuse you. But she said it again later. She said white people are the most oppressive and violent force on earth, right? And then she said, yes, all white people, pretty much predetermining that people are going to be like, well, not all white people. And she said, yes, all white people. So she's saying it's taken out of context. It's not taken out of context. That's exactly what she said. How do you take that out of context? Oh yeah, and white supremacy, that's, when people say white supremacy is bullshit, people confuse white majority for white supremacy. Obviously, you're going to see way more white people in positions of power in the United States and the United Kingdom. Why? Because they are the majority. They are the vast majority in the nation. In the United States, there's more than half the people are white. So you're going to see more white people than any other race, though you do see other races in politics. You see black people, you see Hispanic people. We've had a half black president. Hello, England as well, right? I'm sure you've got, well, I don't know too much about English politics. I don't know who are in the UK politics, but I'm sure there's been black people in positions in politics. I'm sure there's been Arabic people, like Indians. I'm sure there has been. I mean, the mayor of London, right? I think he's Arabic, right? He's a Muslim. So it makes sense. you'll see very small numbers of people in politics, but obviously the vast majority of the people in politics and rich and top of corporations are gonna be the majority race of that nation. You don't go to Japan and expect to see Brazilians in their politics and political seats. Why? Because there's only 2 million fucking Brazilians in Japan. They're a small minority. Obviously, what you're gonna expect to see is either 99 or 100% Japanese people in their politics. That's what you should be expecting.
The whole thing with Piers Morgan, he could just shut up and just listen to people when they're speaking rather than having to always have the last word. When I said, maybe if I just sit here and you speak for 5 minutes, he was like, oh yeah, well, it's my show. That is literally what white supremacy is, shut up, this is my show. It's not your show, Piers. You're interviewing somebody. You want my view or you don't want my view. You don't tell me to shut up when you've invited me here to talk about equality.
You see, again, more ridiculousness saying that somebody who's a host of a show, since it's their show, they could tell you to shut up, it's my show, and have the last word. Yeah, they can. That has nothing to do with white supremacy. That has to do with running a show. It would. Piers Morgan's an asshole, and he talks over people, and he's a fucking dick, obviously. But it's still his show. He could do that. Do black people not have shows in UK talk shows? I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they do the same thing. I'm sure they have the last word. I'm sure they could tell guests to shut up and say what they want to say because it's their show. They're the star of the show. You're an interviewer. You're a guest. You're there. People do watch for the interviewer, but they watch on a daily basis to watch the host interview these guests who come in. So the host can do whatever the fuck they want. It's their show. If you don't like it, well, too bad. Don't go on the show anymore. But it's not white supremacy. It's fucking being a host of a show. Fucking ridiculous.
We really need to think about some new solutions rather than trying to address new problems with old solutions. It doesn't make any sense. Just listen to each other, brainstorm, speak to people that aren't in your direct echo chamber, break out of that echo chamber. It does create chaos, as you've seen with the whole L'Oreal thing, because when you're not speaking to people that directly agree with you, you will get that pushback. But it's how we manage that pushback that will bring around change.
I do agree with her on this part. We do need new solutions, but the problem, the difference of opinion I have with her is that she has her own view of what the problems are, but she has no proof to these. I am under the camp that I would like that where we can't come up with solutions until we know exactly what the problem is. We need to break down the problem. We need to be for sure what the problem is, not just assume it. We can't just look at numbers and be like, well, that's got to mean this, so let's solve it this way. That doesn't work. We've tried that before and it doesn't work. What we need to do is know the problem. We need to really know what the problem is, what the cause of the problem is, and then we can come up with a solution. So I do agree with her on some points, but I do agree with her in this last little clip about listening to others, getting out of your echo chamber. But I don't think she follows her own advice. I don't think she does get out of her echo chamber. Or if she does, she completely ignores. She doesn't listen. And, it's... As you can tell, look at what she does. She talked about L'Oreal firing her because she said the wrong things and they don't agree with her. No, you did that because you said something really racist and they can't do that. Can you imagine a white model for L'Oreal came out and said something bad about black people, said black people are the most disgusting race on the planet, right? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that they should let her keep working there? I bet you'd be one of the first proponents to be like, she's got to get out. L'Oreal's disgusting for having a model like her, right? But it's okay when Munroe Bergdorf says, white people are, such a fucking ludicrous statement like white people are the most violent and oppressive nature on earth, Yes, all white people. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's how can you allow somebody, personally, I feel like you shouldn't fire people for things that they say outside, but if they're representative of your company, as she was representing a campaign for them, then yeah, they were totally in their right to fire her. She did say something ridiculously racist, and they were totally right to fire her. So as you can tell from my accent, I am from the United States. I'm not from the UK. So, but I am also mixed race like Munroe Bergdorf. So you have to listen to me because you have to listen to people of color. Just kidding. We have totally different opinions on our own countries. So I don't find my country to have systemic racism. She finds hers too. But maybe I can't talk about her country. So I got my friend Jay, who runs a YouTube channel called the War Kettle, and he is from the United Kingdom, and he's here to tell us what he thinks about Munroe, a little bit of history on her, and what he thinks what his thoughts are on the delusional crap that she spins, right? So take it away, Jay.
Thanks for having me here, Alfie. So, you want to know about Munroe Bergdorf? I think that's how you pronounce the name. I ain't got a fucking clue if I'm honest with you, mate. So, yeah, she said some dumb shit on Facebook around the time of Charlottesville, and that's when L'Oreal, this hair product company here in Britain, French company rather, basically dropped her as one of their models. Then, next thing you know, is she's on This Morning with Piers Morgan, Channel 4 News. She's on the front of every crazy left-wing newspaper in Britain, telling everybody how we're racist. And by we, I mean the whites are racist. And now, obviously, she said that not all. I don't know what really to tell you about this woman, man, trans person thing. She is completely deluded on all her main talking point. This woman is just an utter, complete and utter crazy nut job, insane person who really needs to be given a lot of medication or locked up in an insane asylum.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, and just listen to people